Hey everyone, and welcome to another chess video. For today I chose kind of a short video exemplifying just one main theme. And this theme is castle when you can, because if your king's in the center for too long, you can run into some serious trouble. So I have a game in which I was punished. It was a 30-minute game with 30-second increments, played on ICC. My opponent was, I think he was about 1800. Just to give you some idea of the ratings. So to begin the game, we have the French winnower. We just can't get away from this variation. But this time, I'm playing as white, as opposed to a lot of other videos I've posted. And so we're pretty much mainline stuff, but I usually, since I know the winnower quite well, I like to confuse my opponents with some sidelines. I would normally play, well, normally I like to play knight ge2 in this position with some ideas of gambiting, because you're obviously gambiting the e4 pawn as this knight is pinned. So that runs into some interesting stuff. But anyway, continue with the actual game. I played the Bogo variation of the French winnower, which is quite interesting, as you'll see. And of course, the main line would be a3. So getting to some sidelines, my opponent played the correct move. Taking here would run into some nasty stuff, I believe, for black. And of course, I actually had to learn this the hard way and give my own as black. So that's why I tried this line out myself. I'm fairly new to this line, actually. And book moves follow something like this. And, well, you have ominous threats of the knight eventually coming to d6, but not too soon. So I like this kind of stuff for white. Anyway, so we have the thematic move knight b5, and after trading off, black castles, and we have a pretty comfortable game. The idea for white will be to eventually get this very nice looking outpost on d6 for the knight, where it will control a lot of squares, mainly e8 and c8. So, you know, it'll be hard for rooks to get on those files, and also putting some pressure on b7. But the problem is, if you put it on d6 too early, it can become a liability and a target for black to attack. Because as you can see, well, see, I played c3, which is mainline. But if you play knight d6 too early, we have a line that could follow something like this. This is best play, according to the computer. And you can see, well, later in the game, the knight is pretty much stranded there, and it doesn't have the support yet of the rest of the pieces to justify its position. As you can see, it can't really jump backwards anywhere. Well, except for the b5 square, but that's where it just came from. So that would be counterintuitive. And here I played bishop d3, which was an inaccuracy on my part. My idea was to get my bishop on this b1 h7 diagonal before black closes things down with c4. That way, you know, I could comfortably play, well, actually, comfortably play something like this. And this was my idea. Another idea I had was to just get my pieces developed, because I did notice that my king was in the center. So I wanted to quickly develop and just get my king out of the way. Unfortunately, we'll see in the game that this didn't quite work out. The main move, by the way, is f4. And I was considering this, to strike within my center, but the only thing that scared me was the fact that all these pieces are undeveloped, and my king is still in the middle. But it turns out to be fine because black doesn't really have any way of getting at the king just yet. But I chose bishop d3 over it, and I was punished. Now finally putting my knight, now that I'm forced. And while this pawn was immune, I didn't really lose a pawn because of this little tactic, which you see often in the French defense. But it's going to start getting uncomfortable for white, especially after the f6 push, which will start putting threats on the knight, so it's a little scary. And now he's really putting pressure on the e5 pawn. So I played a check and protected that. Better would have been, however, to play queen to c3 instead of checking, because this queen a5 check will really start destroying the white position, and he finds that later in the game, exploiting the fact that white king is still in the center, so just blocking that diagonal. And I was looking at that diagonal, and I was thinking about queen a5, but it didn't seem so terrible at the time. So this is what I played anyway, knowing all too well that he had that f6 break. And things are getting quite uncomfortable for me because the knight got there too early, and it's now going to become a liability. But remember, the point of my video will be the king still being the center. And this will be really uncomfortable if lines were open for this rook on the f-file. So I traded off and wanted to just close up the f-file and desperately, castle. But now we have, well, after this trade, queen a5. And queen d2 does not work because I missed this move. I was cognizant of queen a5, but I did not see this one. And I really should have. And now things are getting very tricky for white. He can castle, and there's no way to really kick that queen off that diagonal. So here, I tried playing on. And, well, this wasn't really a sacrifice, because you'll see he wins it back after a couple checks. And now I start trying for a draw, and one other point, I guess, is when you're down, I'm down only one pawn, you can always fight for a draw, and I fight pretty hard in this endgame. So attacking the b7 pawn, trying to get my king out of the way. I want to trade off queens because my king is so open. And, well, that was a slight inaccuracy because he let my rook get into the back. And when your opponent has passed pawns, you want your rook to be behind them. So at least I had that, and it gave me a glimmer of hope. Now I'm just trying to check him, and I'll play it for a couple more moves. I've played fairly solid endgame, just trying to stay alive. This was a good move, keeping his king out. And now I'm trying to lock down on the king side. And I thought around here that it was pretty drawish. I didn't really see any breakthroughs for black. However, he did find one. So I offered to draw here, but he didn't accept. And here he has it. He found the solution, which I really had no response to. And of course I can't take with my rook here. That'd be losing on the spot because the pawn is a runner. And so the king's finally getting to h4, and there's nothing I can do about that. It's absolutely lost at this point. My rook has no access to the d-file, and, well, that pawn's queening. So I just played here and resigned. So hopefully you guys will remember for your next games, castle when you can, castle before it's too late, so you don't run into trouble like I did in this game. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you got something out of it. I mean, it's a pretty common mistake that we see often, even in Grandmaster games these days. You know, it's an easy mistake to make. Very often you want to get on with your initiative, but you've got to take the time to castle. You've got to take the time to put your king away before you start attacking. So that's it for today's video. If you liked it, please like it on YouTube and subscribe if you like. I'll be here for next video. See ya.